students, welcome to Narayana RS. I am Pratik, your presenter for Daily News Analysis. Now students, as part of our Daily News Analysis, we shall be discussing 5 important topics from the Hindu and the Indian Express. So the first topic that we shall be discussing is the Israel-Palestine conflict. Now the article offers a comprehensive analysis of the political, historical and the ongoing tensions between the Israel and Palestine. Right? The second article talks about the UP anti-conversion laws and the Special Marriage Act and how the provisions of UP anti-conversion law and the Special Marriage Act are conflicting. The third article talks about Thrissur Pooram. Now, it is one of the most spectacular festivals celebrated in the state of Kerala. The fourth article talks about how India is trying to counter China by helping the Southeast Asian countries. For example, India has readied to transfer Brahmos missile to Philippines. And the fifth article talks about Supreme Court's observation on forests, stating that forests are India's national asset and it contributes immensely to the economic and the environmental significance. So these are the 5 topics that we shall be discussing, and in the end we shall be discussing few practice questions so that you understand the types of questions that are asked in the examination. So let's get started, students.
Student, the first article is on Israel and it talks about a two-state solution. So we need to understand the Israel-Palestine conflict and also we need to understand what is two-state solution, and this topic can be mapped under GS paper 2 in international relations. Okay, a question can be asked of this nature. For example, the term two-state solution is sometimes mentioned in news in the context of the affairs of these other 4 options, right? So let's try to understand the context. Now, what is the context? Now, this article offers a comprehensive analysis of the historical, political and the ongoing tensions between the Israel and Palestine. So let us try to understand the origin of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Now students, the Israel-Palestine conflict is a long-standing one. It's a long-standing and a very complex dispute. Why? Because the issue is surrounding or is centered around territory, sovereignty and the rights of the Palestinians as well as the Israelis, right? Now, the origin of Israel and Palestine has its roots in the 19th and the early 20th century, especially with the evolution or rise of Zionism. Now, what is Zionism? Now, Zionism is a movement wherein a Zionist leader, Theodor Herzl, he exhorted all the Jews to return back to their homeland, Palestine. Palestine or Israel is one of the same. So, Theodor Herzl exhorted all the Jews to come back or migrate to their original homeland or homeland for the Jews, that is Palestine. This is known as Zionism movement. In 1947, United Nations, it proposed a partition plan and it divided the British Mandate of Palestine. Now, after the First World War, the Palestine went under the control of the British. 1947, the United Nations partitioned it and established 2 nations. One is Israel and the second one is Palestine. So 2 nations were carved out of Palestine. One is Israel and the other one is Palestine. Now the Jewish leadership accepted the United Nations partition plan, but the Arab leaders, they rejected this partition plan, which led to the Arab-Israeli War of 1948. This was the first war between the Israelis and the Arabs. Now, many such wars were fought after 1948. For example, since its establishment, that is 1947, Israel had fought many wars with the Arab nations, right? Now, the conflicts have resulted in significant changes to the territorial control, which means the areas which were given to Israel and Palestine in 1949, it underwent a significant change with respect to Israel gaining control over West Bank, Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem and Golan Heights. Now, let us try to see these locations in the map. So, this is the map. Here we see Golan Heights. This is Gaza. This is West Bank. So, in the subsequent wars fought between Israel and the Arab nations, Israel occupied this Gaza Strip, West Bank, Golan Heights, right? So, this is what is mentioned in this particular point. Now, Israel has occupied the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip since the 1967 war with the Arab countries. Now, in response to the way how the Israelis were occupying settlements in West Bank, or let's say Gaza Strip, right? Many nations opposed the illegal occupation of the settlements in the East Bank or the West Bank, right? And that's the reason, in order to fight against the Israelis, the Palestinian national movement emerged. Why? In response to the way how the Israelis were occupying settlements in the West Bank and Gaza. For example, Palestine Liberation Organization and Hamas were such groups formed to fight against the Israelis politically as well as militarily. And numerous attempts were made to negotiate peace between Israelis and the Arab nations. For example, we have this Oslo Accords in the 1990s, but unfortunately, the peace efforts were hindered by issues such as borders, settlements, security, and the status of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a holy place for the Muslims, for the Christians, as well as the Jews. Now, Abraham Accord. What is this Abraham Accord? Now, it is a series of agreements aimed to normalize relations between Israel and the Arab nations. But with the way how the Hamas attacked Israel, the hope between Israel and the Arab nations has been put a break. This is Abraham Accord. So Abraham Accord tried to mend the relations between Israel and the Arab nations, but because of the Hamas attack on Israel, the hope has been doused. So what is a two-state solution? Now, two-state solution is a proposed framework for resolving the Israel-Palestine conflict. Now, this two-state solution talks about the area to be divided into two lands. One is for the Israelis, the other one is for the Palestinians, which means the land which were given to Israelis and Palestinians by the United Nations should be strictly adhered to. Talking about Jerusalem, now Jerusalem should be shared between Israel and Palestine. For example, the East Jerusalem will be given to the Palestinians and the West Jerusalem will be given to the Israelis. And whenever the two-state solution materializes, all the illegal settlements of Israelis in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip will be dismantled. This is two-state solution. I hope you understood what is two-state solution. Now let us try to understand India's stand on Palestine conflict. Now, India's stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict has evolved over the years, right? Now, India had always a nuanced approach which balanced various factors, like the historical factor, the international law, and strategic interests. So, India still has a very nuanced approach with respect to Israel-Palestine conflict. Now, traditionally, India has been supporting the Palestinian cause. Now, India was one among the few countries to recognize Palestinian Liberation Organization as a sole representative of the Palestinian people. Then, India has consistently advocated the cause of two-state solution, which means India wants that the land should be divided between Israel and Palestine, and Israelis and Palestinians should coexist. So, India strongly believes in the concept of two-state solution, and India also emphasizes that there should be no third party involved in the Israeli-Palestine conflict. So the two parties, Israel and Palestine, should come on the table and negotiate peace. So this is what India emphasizes. Now, in recent decades, despite the fact that India has been a traditional supporter of Palestinian cause, India significantly expanded diplomatic, economic, and defense ties with Israel. For example, in different sectors, India and Israelis are building relations. For example, defense cooperation, technology, agriculture, and counter-terrorism. Now, India seeks to maintain a balanced approach to the Israel-Palestine conflict, which means India understands the concerns of Israelis as well as Palestinians. That's the reason India wants that both the nations should sit across the table and negotiate peace. And India has repeatedly emphasized the importance of dialogue rather than violence, mutual respect, and peaceful coexistence as to be the only way for better Israel-Palestine relationship. Now, what is the current events surrounding the Israel-Palestine conflict? What is the current status? The current situation is marked by ongoing military operations, humanitarian crisis, and escalating regional tensions. Why? Because we know that on October 7, 2023, Hamas attacked Israel. And Israelis responded severely against the Hamas attack on the Israeli soil. Now, this attack has triggered a severe Israeli response, which has led to humanitarian cause. There's food shortages in Gaza. US has declared the northern Gaza as to be the famine, right? So, the ongoing situation is tense. There are regional tensions in the West Asian region. At the same time, the Israelis and Hamas are locked in a fierce battle which has displaced lakhs of people, which has killed thousands of people. So, the essential infrastructure in Gaza has been significantly damaged. More than half of the homes and 80% of the school buildings are destroyed or damaged. This is the present situation in Gaza. All we can hope that is both the nations to sit across the table, discuss terms and conditions, and ensure that no violence should be resorted to. And ultimately, for the sake of humanity, both the countries have to negotiate peace and have to ensure that people should be given their due rights. Right? So this is about the article. Students, the next topic or next article is about Uttar Pradesh anti-conversion laws. The title of the topic is Playing to Anxieties. So let us try to understand how this article is important. Again, you need to understand UP anti-conversion laws, you need to understand interfaith marriages, and also you need to understand Special Marriages Act. And this topic can be clubbed under GS paper 1 under communalism and secularism. Again, a question can be asked of this sort. Which article of the Indian Constitution safeguards one's right to marry the person of one's choice, right? So it's a very simple question. It has to be Article 21. So such type of questions can be expected. Now, what is the context? The context is that the different benches of Allahabad High Court have come up with different interpretations relating to the Uttar Pradesh anti-conversion law. Now, what are benches? Now, there can be one judge bench, there can be two judge bench, there can be three judge bench. Now, different benches have given different interpretation regarding the Uttar Pradesh anti-conversion laws. Now, this is leading to harassment of the interfaith couples. At the same time, the society is not accepting, or in a way, the society does not accept the interfaith marriages, and as a reason, the protection which the police gives to the interfaith couples is in a way not concrete, not substantial. Why? Because of lack of clarity with respect to the Uttar Pradesh anti-conversion law. And that's the reason as the couples are living in fear, threat, it is important that the Supreme Court should intervene. Why? The Supreme Court's intervention is crucial to safeguard the individual autonomy against the restrictive and the inconsistently applied regulations. So it is very important that the Supreme Court should interpret the law so that the interfaith couples or their life can be protected. Again, we need to understand the constitutional provision. Article 21, the court have consistently upheld the right to choose one's spouse is an integral part of fundamental rights. So Article 21 is right to life and personal liberty. So right to marry of one choice falls under Article 21. Then Article 25 says that it ensures freedom of conscience, which means a person as per his conscience can choose the faith that he or she wants to. A person born in a Hindu family can also convert to Christianity or let's say Sikhism, but they should not be forceful. This is what Article 25 grants autonomy to every individual to choose the spouse, religion of their liking or choice. Now, in this context, we get to hear this term called love jihad. So, what is love jihad? It is an alleged activity where alleged, it is not proven, under which young Muslim boys and men are said to reportedly target young girls from the non-Muslim communities and forcefully convert them to Islam, right? But again, important for all the aspirants is to know that there is no legal sanction to such political terms like love jihad. But you need to understand what is love jihad. Now, anti-conversion laws in India. The parliament of our country had tried to enact a legislation to prevent forced conversion, for example, in the year 1954, 1960 and 1979. But it could not be passed. Why? Because there is no majority. That's the reason it could not be passed. Now, law and order is a state subject. Under 7th schedule, we have union list, state list and concurrent list. Law and order falls under state list, which means only the state governments are allowed to make laws with respect to subjects mentioned under the state list, right? So only the state governments can make such type of laws. For example, Uttar Pradesh has made a law. Now let's try to understand the Uttar Pradesh Prohibition of Unlawful Conversion of Religion Act 2021. Now this act makes force or religious conversion, forcible conversion, a non-bailable offense. You won't get bail. The onus, the responsibility will be on the defendants to prove that conversion was not for marriage. So the onus is on the defendants. The notice period to district magistrate for religious conversion is 2 months, which means if you want to convert your religion to other religion, you need to serve the notice period of 2 months. Now, in case of conversion done by a woman for the sole purpose of marriage, then the marriage could also be declared null and void. This is what this law states. And if the provisions are violated, the person can attract a jail term of not less than 1 year. It can be extended to 5 years or 15,000 penalty. So these are the provisions of the Uttar Pradesh anti-conversion laws. Now what is Special Marriage Act? For example, if 2 Hindus want to get married, there is a Hindu marriage law. Or if the Muslim or the 2 people, a man and woman of Islam want to get married, then there is a law meant for the people of Islam. But what if a Hindu and a Muslim wants to marry? Now, and what if the society is not accepting or the parents are rejecting against such interfaith marriages? Then the constitution has provided for Special Marriage Act 1954, wherein people from 2 different communities can marry and get their marriage protected and registered. This is what Special Marriage Act is. Which are the key provisions of Special Marriage Act? They are universally applicable to all the Indian citizens belonging to different faiths. It facilitates civil marriages sanctioned by the state, which means registration of marriages is compulsory, which provides couples with the legal recognition and the subsequent benefits like inheritance and the social securities. Age requirement, the minimal requirement for a man is 21 years for males and 18 years is for the females. Now, the couple who wants to register the marriage under the Special Marriage Act have to notice to the marriage officer, which means a 30-day notice period has to be given to the marriage officer. And anyone objecting to this marriage can approach before the marriage officer. Now, this provision is controversial. Why? The mandatory public notice of 30 days meant to allow for lawful objections often results in undue interference in the personal affairs or personal choices of the interfaith couples, right? So this 30 days notice period is served for the reason that if anyone has to object to this marriage, they can, but this results in undue interference in the personal matters of the couples. Allowing objections within 30 days of notice can be misused, which can also lead to harassment and delays in registering the marriages or solemnizing the marriages. Again, unfortunately, even we are living the 21st century, but the society is yet to accept interfaith marriages. Again, lack of education, lack of awareness is resulting into society not accepting interfaith marriages. That's the reason the social stigma and resistance associated with interfaith marriages should be completely removed. Way forward. Now, if India has to protect such interfaith couples, then the society has to understand the importance of religious freedom, human rights, and social harmony. For example, a comprehensive review of the existing anti-conversion laws has to be done by the experts so as to ensure if the laws are as per the constitutional provisions or not. And if such laws are against the constitutional provisions, then such laws can be declared unconstitutional, right? Then again, it is very important that the society is a major stakeholder in such issues. So it is very important that dialogue and consultation should be facilitated among the society people, among the legal experts, among the religious leaders, so that there should be a consensus with respect to the interfaith marriages. Again, if such anti-conversion laws are against the constitutional principles of freedom of religion and expression, it should be completely deleted, which means any such law which should prevent the forceful conversion should take into consideration two things. One, the law should ensure that forceful conversion should not happen. Second, it should also safeguard the individual autonomy, right? So this is what the article is about. I hope students you understood the article. Students, the next article is about Thrissur Pooram. Now, it is important to know Thrissur Pooram festival. Why? Because it can be asked in your prelims examination. It can be clubbed under arts and culture, right? So, let's try to understand what is Thrissur Pooram. Again, a question can be asked of this sort in the examination. For example, these are the traditions and these are the communities. You have to match the correct pair, right? There's a reason such topics are important for your prelims examination. Now, Thrissur Pooram is known as one of the largest festivals celebrated not only in Kerala but across the globe. In 2024, it will be celebrated on April 20. So, it is important to know Thrissur Pooram. Now, it is considered to be one of Kerala's most important cultural festival. Why? Because it amalgates, that is, it blends the spiritual aspect with that of the local culture. It's a 7-day festival. The 6th day is the most important one. Why? Because that's where Thrissur Pooram takes place. Now, it is observed in the Malayalam month of Medam, and it is observed when the moon rises with the Pooram star. So, for your prelims, this point is important, right? Again, this point. Now, it was initiated by Shakthan Thampuran. He was the ruler of Cochin, and he came up with this Thrissur Pooram as an alternative to Aratapuzha Pooram. Now, this Pooram had restricted a group of temples from attending the popular Aratapuzha Pooram due to heavy rains. That's the reason the ruler of Cochin came up with Thrissur Pooram. Now, which are the main attractions in the festival? First is the musical accompaniment. The traditional music includes the performance of Chenda, Melam and Pancha Vadiyam. Again, a very important point for your prelims. Then a significant firework display known as Vediketu. Again, a point for your prelims. Then, again, this festival attracts a large number of people across the globe, highlighting its significance beyond the local community. So, I hope students you understood what Thrissur Pooram is. Now, students, the next article that we shall be discussing is India's supply of Brahmos missile to Philippines in the larger South China Sea dispute. Let's try to understand this article. Now, important for you to understand is the South China Sea dispute, the Permanent Court of Arbitration and Brahmos missile. Again, this can be mapped in the prelims syllabus under international relations or the current events of national and international importance, right? So, let's start. Again, a question of this sort can be expected with reference to Agni 4 missile. Which of the following statements are correct? These are the 3 statements and you have to select one option. Now, the context is that India delivered Brahmos supersonic missile to Philippines as part of $375 million deal signed in the year 2022. Now, this transfer or this sale of Brahmos missiles is important for Philippines. Why? Because Philippines and China have confrontation or have tussle over the maritime area in the South China Sea, right? Now, there is an island called Scarborough Shoal, and Philippines as well as China both are laying their claims over this island. China, however, is controlling over this island since the year 2012, right? Now, this island is in the South China Sea. This island lies within the Philippines exclusive economic zone. Exclusive economic zones is 200 nautical miles. It is 200 nautical miles from the coastal water, right? So, as this is a point of contestation between Philippines and China, Philippines approached the Permanent Court of Arbitration in the year 2013, and this PCA sits in Hague. In the year 2016, PCA gave the judgment. It ruled the judgment in favor of Philippines, which means it did not accept the claims made by China. So this was the judgment of the Permanent Court of Arbitration. Now, despite the judgment of the Permanent Court Arbitration, China rejected its validity, citing the historical rights that China had over the Scarborough Islands. And the dispute remains unsolved. This is leading to escalating tensions over maritime boundaries, fishing rights, resource exploration, and freedom of navigation. Right? You can see the countries, Vietnam, Philippines, then Indonesia. All these countries have maritime conflicts with China. Now, in an effort to reinforce its influence, China's influence over these contested islands, China began constructing artificial islands across all the contested islands. For example, they're equipping them with ports, military installations, and airstrips. Now, this has further fueled tensions between China and the Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia, Philippines, etc. Now, these are the countries, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and these are the islands that these countries have conflicts with China, right? It is important to understand why India has helped Philippines with the Brahmos supersonic missiles. Now, China is trying to counter India by engaging with our neighboring countries in the Indian Ocean region. China is trying to reduce India's influence in the Indian Ocean region by engaging into military as well as other sort of agreements with our neighboring countries. Now, in order to pressurize China or counter China, the way China is trying to encircle India, India is collaborating with the Southeast Asian countries to put a united stand or united challenge against China in the South China Sea, right? Now, again, it is important for you to understand what is Brahmos missile. Now, this is a nuclear-capable supersonic cruise missile system. It has a capability to be deployed from several platforms, be it air, sea, and land. It has a capability to travel at a speed of Mach 3, and it is one of the world's fastest missiles. It was developed by Brahmos Aerospace and tested for the first time in the year 2001. Brahmos is named after two rivers. One is Brahmaputra and Moskva. Brahmaputra is an Indian river and Moskva is the Russian river. Now, Russians helped India to develop this Brahmos missile. It is manufactured by Brahmos Aerospace Limited, which is a joint venture between DRDO, India, and the Russian Military Industrial Council. Students, I hope you understood this article. Students, the next article talks about the Supreme Court's observation on the forests. So, forest, a national asset and major contributor to financial wealth. Again, the word or the topic forest and the Forest Conservation Amendment Act of 2023 becomes important to understand. And again, this particular topic can be mapped under GS paper 3, Conservation, Environmental Pollution and Degradation. A question of this sort can be asked in the UPSC examination. For example, as per the recent amendments to the Indian Forest Act of 1927, forest dwellers have the right to fell the bamboos grown on forest regions. Then the second statement talks about the scheduled tribes and the other traditional forest dwellers recognition of Forest Act 2006, right? So these are the statements which can be asked in the UPSC examination. Now, the Supreme Court has asserted in a judgment that the forests in India are of national asset and they are contributors to nation's financial wealth. Now, the Telangana government had appealed or filed a case in the Supreme Court against a High Court judgment which gave a private company the right to own a forest land. And as a reason, the Telangana High Court approached the Supreme Court. And against this, the Supreme Court ruled that forests are India's national asset. Now, keeping this observation into mind, it is also important to discuss the recently passed Forest Conservation Amendment Act of 2023, which led to several controversies in our country surrounding this particular act. The critics say that this act can facilitate encroachments and commercial exploitation of the forest areas. So let us try to understand more about this particular act. The implication of the act has been, or the implication is that it can lead to depletion of forest cover, which can result in the extinction of various organisms. Why? Why do we say so? Let's try to understand the provisions of the act. Now, there's a provision which states exemption for strategic projects, which means the areas which are declared strategic, the laws meant for the protection of environment won't be applicable. For example, the projects which are near the international borders, the laws meant for the protection of environment will not be applicable to those areas, which means it can lead to deforestation in ecologically sensitive regions such as Himalayas, Trans-Himalayan region, as well as the northeastern region. Then these exemptions can also facilitate the clearance of forests without environmental impact assessment, which can threaten the biodiversity as well. Again, the removal of forest cover can exacerbate the risk of extreme weather events, which can destabilize the fragile ecosystem of our country. This is one such impact. Then, how will it impact the indigenous communities? Now, the act is criticized. Why? Because it has a potential to erase the rights of indigenous communities who depend on the forests, And the potential clearing of forests without the adequate consultation or consent from the indigenous population can lead to violations of the rights and displacements. For example, we have the 5th and the 6th schedule meant for the scheduled and the tribal areas, right? So this can lead to violation of the constitutional provisions as well. Again, the act limits its applicability to areas recorded as forests only on or after October 1980, which means the protection is only given to the forests declared after 1980, which means the forests which were declared as forests before 1980, the protection will not be given to those forests declared as forests before 1980. This opens up significant section of forest land to potential sale, diversion or clearance for non-forestry purpose. Now, the Supreme Court also highlighted the modern concepts of carbon credit and green accounting. Now, what is this carbon credit? Now, every company who emits greenhouse gases are given a limit, which means beyond that limit, they cannot emit greenhouse gases. And if they emit greenhouse gases beyond the limit, then they have to buy carbon credits from the market. And what is green accounting? Green accounting, which means whenever an economic analysis of any project is done, other factors such as environmental and social factors are also taken into consideration. This is known as green accounting. These have become practical measures to evaluate a nation's wealth. Forests, they act as carbon sinks. It significantly contributes to country's financial standing. How? India can sell the carbon credits to other countries, which can also help our economy. The potential economic impact by 2100 could range from a 3 to 10% loss in GDP annually if we do not take care of our forests or environment. Now, forests, they play a protective role against climate change by absorbing the CO2, carbon dioxide, thereby mitigating or reducing the climate impact. Now, 2022-2023 report of the RBI, it predicts that significant economic losses due to climate change, which can cost India up to 2.8% of its GDP by 2050. The RBI also warns of substantial job losses across sectors because of climate change. So there are red alarms raised by various sectors, various organizations, and that's the reason the government of India has to ensure to protect our fragile ecosystem and also protect the rights of the indigenous communities. I hope students you understood this article. Students, it's time to discuss practice questions. So let's get started. Question number 1. Consider the following statements regarding forests in India. Now, according to the Indian State of Forest Report 2021, the total forest and tree cover in India accounts for less than 20% of the country's geographical area. This statement is correct. Arunachal Pradesh has the largest forest cover in terms of the area in the country. Even this statement is correct. Both the statements are correct. Option C is the correct answer. Which one of the following countries of Southwest Asia does not open out to the Mediterranean Sea? So, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon and Israel. Jordan is the country that does not open up to the Mediterranean Sea. So, let us try to see the map. For example, this is the Mediterranean Sea. So, this is Syria borders, Lebanon 2 borders, Israel borders. Jordan is the only country that does not open up to the Mediterranean Sea. So, Jordan is the correct answer. Consider the following statements with respect to Brahmos missile system. Now, Brahmos is a ballistic missile system. No, Brahmos is a cruise missile system. What's the difference? The difference is the ballistic missiles are long range, right? They are not precise, right? But the cruise missiles are precise. They fly at a low altitude and they are guided. Ballistic, they are not guided. So, first statement is incorrect. It can be launched from submarines, ships, aircraft and land. This is correct. We did discuss that. It can be launched from any platform. It is a two-stage missile system with solid and liquid propellant. Even this statement is correct, which means it seems that option C is the correct answer. Now, regarding the Special Marriage Act 1954. Now, the Special Marriage Act allows interfaith couples to marry without the requirement for either person to convert. Very true. This is what we discussed. The act is applicable only to Hindus and Muslims. Wrong. The act is applicable to people belonging to all the religions. So, this is incorrect. Under the SMA, the state sanctions civil marriages that must be registered, providing couples with legal recognition and benefits like right to inheritance. Yes. The legal minimum age for marriage under the SMA is 21. No, it is 21 years for males and 18 for females. So, this is incorrect, which means 1 and 3. So, option A is the correct answer. With reference to Thrissur Pooram, is one of the most important cultural festivals of Tamil Nadu. This is incorrect. It is the most important cultural festival of Kerala. It is observed when the moon rises too with the Pooram star. Yes. A significant fireworks display known as Vedikattu marks the festival. Yes, this is correct, which means how many of the statements are correct? 2 only, which means 2 and 3, that is option B has to be the correct answer. Now the main question. Analyze the implications of the Unlawful Conversion of Religious Act in India on the fundamental rights. So, implication of such anti-conversion laws on the fundamental rights of Article 21 and 25. Critically examine how the Supreme Court's intervention might address the inconsistencies in the application of this act. The first and foremost, in the introduction, you need to mention about the Unlawful Prevention Act. For example, the Uttar Pradesh government, Haryana government had introduced unlawful conversion of religious acts, right? Now, again, you need to also mention the recent Allahabad High Court judgment, or how the different benches of Allahabad High Court came up with the different interpretations regarding such laws, which leads to confusion among the minds or in the minds of the interfaith couples, right? And that's the reason it is important for the Supreme Court to intervene. This is what you can mention in the introduction. Now, in the body, you have to mention how such anti-conversion laws impacts the fundamental rights. Article 21. So, what is Article 21? Right to life and personal liberty. You have the freedom to marry a person of your choice. Article 25. Based on your conscience, you are free to choose religion whichever you want. So, such anti-conversion law would restrict the fundamental right in the sense it will allow or it will force you to marry people within your own community, or for that matter, it won't allow you to convert to other religions. Now, conversion to other religions willingly is completely fine, but forceful is prevented. Now, again, you also need to mention the challenges, different type of challenges that might arise because of such anti-conversion laws. For example, it might lead to harassment by the state authorities, by the police. At the same time, the society is not willing, or the society does not permit such interfaith couple marriages, or the society does not recognize such interfaith marriages. That's the reason it is important that the interfaith couple should be given protection. For that, it is very important that the Supreme Court should come up with a judgment regarding the constitutionality of such anti-conversion laws, right? Then again, you can mention the challenges with respect to privacy issues as well as the societal resistance. And then in the conclusion, you can mention how it is important for India that India, despite being a secular country, such interfaith marriages are not accepted in our country. So to stay true, to hold true to the secular fabric of our country, it is important that education awareness should be permitted in the society so that the society accepts such interfaith marriages, right? I hope you understood the way of you need to write the answer. So this is all about the practice question, students, and we are ending our DNA session as well. So students, that's it. Here we conclude our DNA discussion. Students, if you want us to continue with our DNA session, do like, share and subscribe Narayana S. Thank you.